with a laugh with Ben here again at a Friday Live. Who is a member of Unboring Wedding Academy, who is a certified Unboring Wedding officiant on my website, throwing the switch, here to learn more. He's like a sponge. So many of you here. It's so great. I see. I've been saying hello as much as I could to people who are here. Cindy's here, also a member of Unboring Wedding. Kirsty's here. Bridget, sorry I missed you. Bridget, good to see you. You're in SD. I think that means San Diego. Is that right? I hope so. Sometimes my American acronyms members know this already. I do what I can. Good to see Mother Min here from New York City. If I'm saying that right, that's more of a username, I think. And of course, who did I miss? Eddie's here from Mexico. Pretty awesome. Jane is here. Oh, so good to see you. Lots of not only members of Unboring Wedding Academy, but certified members who have taken the Academy course and the Pro course and have met all the standards and are just amazing. So, man, we're all under one virtual roof here. Seems like some of us will be meeting each other at Wedding MBA, which is awesome. And Matthew's here from Temecula. Oh, Gralf, you're here again. Good to see you. I loved that last time we were on here. And then hours later, you came inside Unboring Wedding Academy. So welcome as a full bona fide member now. Good to see you. And Laura is here as well with just the comment, your humor, which could be good or bad. Well, we'll see. Oh, your help with my reset. Okay, good. Okay, I there's more. We're doing it in reverse. Good, good. Like I said, I don't know what your humor means. That could be said in a good way or a bad way, but that's okay. I know I'm not for everyone, and as Mark Maron said once, some days I'm not for me. But here we are. All together. I'm just being me. Friday fat fingers. Yeah, it's Friday. The fingers are tired, especially if you're a wedding officiant. You got a wedding tomorrow. I know I do. And you've been writing that script, banging out that love story. The fingers are a bit tired by Friday. But we are here to talk about wedding rituals. And so, for those of you who are not sure about this, again, I know we have lots of pros here and people who have seen their fair share of wedding rituals. It seems like there's an endless number of wedding rituals, but I wanted to take a quick poll here. What percentage, those of you who are officiants, what percentage of your couples would you say add a ritual outside of the vows and the rings? Of course, those are kind of like your classic standard wedding ceremony elements. Give me a out of 100, 80%, 70%, 50%, 100%. What percentage of your couples would you say ask for a unity ritual inside the ceremony? Ben was the first to answer, about 50%. Okay, that's sometimes I wonder if it's geographical. Sometimes I wonder if it's how we market ourselves. I don't want to. 85%, Ralph, want a ritual of some sort. 50% spiritual notary. Eddie says 90%. So it's high in Mexico. These are percentages of couples who do want some sort of unity ritual. That was a great poll. Wow, none so far in Oz. Hey, John, good to see you. So this is interesting, John, because Canada and Australia, although sometimes politically a bit different, we're kind of the British Commonwealthy heritage countries. And I've got to say, Nona says 100%. Laura says maybe only 5%. Laura, I'd love to know, where are you? Can you remind me? We're trying to figure out if this is geographical or not, because I didn't want to influence the poll. But I am going to say that for me, it is probably about 10% of couples. So when I see John say 0 in Oz, and we've got 100%. I think Eddie said 90. Nona said 100. Laura is in Jasper. So that's interesting. See, Laura says 5%. For me, 10-ish percent. I wonder if it's kind of like where you're at. So, the couples who find me, Unboring Wedding, they want the love story. They're hiring me, I think, for kind of that MC style, laid back presence, engaging the guests, exactly how I teach it to all the members who've been inside Unboring Wedding Academy. And so I just feel like a lot of a lot of Canadian couples anyway are like, they just don't seem to have the tolerance, a lot of them. And I wouldn't say unity rituals are a bad thing, but a lot of them just like, no, like in our wedding planning session, they're just like saying, we don't want anything cheesy or whatever like that. And it's like, well, rituals aren't necessarily that. They're beautiful, they're symbolic, they're meaningful. They kind of go along with the wedding rings, I would argue. But it's interesting to see this at 13%. Matthew says it's very precise. Matthew must have done some sort of algorithm, long division from this in your ceremony. So thank you for that. Yeah. So Nona says, yes, the wedding rituals, I should define them because Nona's on it. Candles, sand. Kirsty says none so far. Also a Canadian in Ontario. So this is fascinating. Eddie says you're at a beach destination. Maybe that's why. Okay, so a lot of sand, Eddie. Is that if am I safe in guessing there's a lot of sand mixing, or is that just too cliche? I wonder. Ben says, did a wedding last spring. We did 4 rituals. It went on and on and on. I do say to my couples in our wedding planning session, our workshop, as I call it, wedding workshop, that they can add as many things as they like. And Ben, I'm kind of waiting for that. I do tease them. I say, if you don't add anything, which 90% of my couples don't, your ceremony is going to be about 25 minutes. But then we can add the sand and the hand fasting and the mixing, and we can add a quake. We can jump over a broom. We can do a rose ceremony. We can, and they can go on and on. So yeah, I haven't had any couple take me up on that. Okay, second question, and Nona kind of anticipated this. Is there a ritual that is most popular? One that you've done many, many, many times. You could probably do with your eyes closed at this point. What would you say is the most so passe? What is the most common unity ritual that you do? Oh, the 4 element ceremony. That's neat. Fire, water, earth, and air. You know what? I have not been asked to do that yet. It's just kind of on the edge of my periphery. This is a great example of one of those things where sometimes, and I talk about this a lot in my course, you sit down for that planning session and you're like, would you like to add a ritual? And you feel a bit nervous that they're going to hit you with something you've never heard and you look stupid. But I would say don't feel that way, because there are so many rituals. This is one that's really on the rise now. The 4 elements. Sand, Matthew says, is the common one. Unity, candle, sand blending. Yeah. So those are so common. I call them the big 3: hand fasting, candle lighting, and sand mixing. Those are so big that in my book, I just put them in there as an appendix. In the course, I just have those 3 as in the bonuses section, because they come up a lot. But I do not want to undermine what I just said. There are new up and coming that will probably change. And so today I wanted to talk about tree planting. If you saw the title of this, where I had a great question from Dustin this week, inside Unboring Wedding Academy, and he said, I've got this tree planting, where should that go? And so I wanted to talk about kind of the criteria that I use for where something goes in the ceremony. Candle, sand blending, that kind of stuff. I have 2 criteria. Basically, we want to solve 2 problems, or approach this in 2 different ways, almost solve 2 problems, or make sure 2 things don't become a problem. That's kind of my criteria whenever I get hit with a ritual. So for example, I had like a Filipino couple, and there were some ethnic things in there, joining the veil, the exchanging of the coins, things like that. And again, I had never done any of those things, and I wasn't worried about telling them that when they said, "Oh, we'd like to do the traditional Filipino." The lasso is another one. Things like that, where I just said, "Okay, we're going to add that." I always say, when the couple asks you to add something, they are the boss. It's their ceremony. We add it, but you won't always know what it is. And that's why you have this planning session with them Well, that's period, but also that's why we have it with them about 4 to 6 weeks before the day. We want to add what they want to add. We also want to have time if they hit us with something that we have never seen before and don't know how to do. You're not expected to know how to do everything. You go and research that and check it out. So Jane's joining the poll. 60 to 75% of your couples ask for a unity ritual. Diana asks, "Hey, welcome, Diana. Should we ask the couple to clarify their rituals so we're all on the same page?" Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up because, and I'm going to talk about this today. Let's get into it, Diana. That was a great segue. I'll give you your tenor later. Thanks for getting me out of the rut. Let's get this on the road. For example, the tree planting. So let's imagine a couple says, I want a tree planting. Let's add a tree planting to our ceremony. Well, to Diana's point, yeah, I got that. Oh, your husband's Dane. So Diana says, I mean the same page, not the Dane page. I got it. Fat Friday fingers. Everybody's got them. Wine box, cool, Jane. Not 46. I feel like we're really off the rails here. Matthew, we have the planning session 4 to 6 weeks, between 4 and 6 weeks. You guys are killing me today. 46 weeks before the wedding, we want to have the planning session. No. Thank you for clarifying. If I said 4, I have Fat Friday mouth apparently. 4 to 6 weeks before is when a month and a half, we sit down with them, and let's say our couple says we want a tree planting. Well, as Diana pointed out, if you just say, yeah, sure, and you assume you know what they mean, and they assume you know what they mean, then there could be a problem. Now, another safeguard for this, of course, is after the planning session, when you're filling out that spreadsheet or however you do it. Of course, I provide a spreadsheet inside my course, and there's all kinds of cells, and you are super organized that way. You take all that information and you turn it into their wedding script. I recommend Google Docs, something shareable, and then you send it to them so they can vet it, so they can look at it and say, okay, we like this, we don't like this. But I always want every couple to sign off on the language. So those are two fail safes, if you will. You're in the planning session and you would say, for example, describe to me. That's literally what I say. You want a blank blah 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 ritual? Okay, can you describe to me how you envision that happening? Sometimes they say, oh, well, I don't know, we just know it's a thing. So that's then another segue. Like I to talk about readings, I don't want to go in this rabbit hole, but if a couple says to me, we want a reading, what do you recommend? I typically say, oh, let's not do a reading if you can't think of one that's super special to you. I don't personally recommend readings to my couples. I say, and this is true, I had somebody asking a YouTube question the other day who watched my video about readings and said, well, what about the Bible or something like that? And I would say the same thing. We don't just read the Bible for the sake of reading the Bible in the wedding ceremony. Unless it's part of a reflection that you're giving as the officiant. But if the couple just says, can you read some passage? I would say to them, oh, well, can you pick something that's really meaningful or important to you or that you like? Can you think about it? Again, this is why we have the meeting 4 to 6 weeks before the day. We might have to go away. We might have to do some research as the officiant. The couple might have to go away and do some thinking about some of the things we recommended. And then we come back together. So there's a couple of ways to do a tree planting. And so, for example, your couple might say, and this is what I asked Dustin when he said, where does the tree planting go best? I said, I need a bit more information because this is part of my decision-making criteria about where something goes. The two criteria are, I'll hit you with those now, is the first thing we want to make sure is that wherever we put the ritual, it follows the logic of the ceremony. And I find that really important. I don't know if we think enough about how things flow. We're kind of unfolding a story. And I don't mean the love story we tell. I mean, coming out of the love story, I asked a couple their intent of marriage. Do you stand here today to give yourselves to each other in marriage? They say, we do. I know some people like to say individually their names. Stacy, do you Do you give yourself to Tracy in marriage? Tracy, do you give yourself to Stacy in marriage? And they each say, I do. So I do the intent, and then we move into the vows as the, important. I say, when I'm coming out of my story, I say that's what makes today so pivotal, unlike any other day in the story of Stacy and Tracy. Don't know why those names came, but because of the promises and the vows they're going to make. So, first of all, we want a unity ritual to follow the logic of the ceremony, in the sense of they make their vows, they make those promises, and then unity rituals really are a physical symbol of those promises. And this goes back to the transitions discussion we had a couple Fridays ago. How do we transition? Where I just say what's happening next, or just explain the logic. So this is where a unity ritual, you would say, they've made their vows and now they will plant a tree as a symbol of the promises they've made. Now, of course, you can get into some detail depending on how it goes. So when Dustin replied, he said, oh, it's very simple. All they're going to do is one of them will put a spade of earth in and the other will pour some water in, and it's in a pot right there. Okay, great. That helped me, because I wasn't sure, again, to Diana's point, some couples have the wedding ceremony like on the family farm or in their backyard or something, and I've seen tree plantings where it's right, literally they're like doing a bit of gardening right there on the ground. So that would be a lot more moving around. Maybe you'd want music playing during that while they get a bit dirty or something like that. That is an example of, I would put that in a different place. And that comes to the second criteria of where to put the ritual. Remember, the first one is, does it follow the logic? The second one is, when we're done the ritual, we have to think about what happens next. And I'm always trying to eliminate awkward, weird, moments where people don't really know what to do with themselves. This is a big one for hand fasting, for example. Are you going to tie up their hands and then move into the ring exchange? Well, if you are, it's got to be, you see where I'm going with this. If their hands are all tied up and there's a cord and an infinity knot, and then you're like, it's time to exchange rings, they've got to get out of that hand fasting. Okay, so I've done it both ways, depending on the kind of accoutrement, cord, ribbon that they want to use. If they slip it off very easily, we put it on a table, and that knot stays together because it's going to go on their mantle, and that's what we said. This is a symbol of their lives being inextricably bound, that kind of thing. Then, of course, we don't want to undo the knot, because we've just literally undone the symbol that we just said. But if it is a more complicated cord, then I would do the rings first, then tie up their hands, and then they can, after you, that's where typically I would say in my ceremony, I pronounce you married, you may kiss. And they kiss, and they can still kiss with their hands tied together. Again, some people roll the vows into the hand fasting as well. So that's my second criteria, okay? It's not cookie cutter here, but generally for 90% of the rituals that I do, which are 10% of my couples, the ritual comes between the vows and the rings. If it's not a lot of moving around, a lot of getting out of place, a lot of movement, walking, if it's not too chaotic. Okay, so for example, the sand mixing, say they come out of the vows, and then you say something like, they will now mix sand, each color representing them or their families. Again, there's a few ways of doing it, but typically it's on a table. I've seen it on a table right behind me where I get out of the way. I've seen it on a table where they move over and start mixing the sand. Again, to keep things moving and flow and eliminate awkward moments, you want to be usually explaining the ritual while they do it. So going back to the transitions conversation, you invite them to move over to the sand. Again, you don't have to instruct them on how to do it. Hopefully you've practiced a little bit, or they have, and you've made sure everything is there. But this is where you're explaining to the guests what Stacy and Tracy are doing, what the colors represent. And in the same way that the sand can never be separated again, it's forming something new. Same with Stacy and Tracy's lives today in this ceremony and beyond, something like that. So for the tree planting, it's right there on the table. In Dustin's case, they move over, and Dustin would, this is why I recommend it, explain it while they put the earth in and the water, and of course the tree will bloom into something strong and beautiful for generations to come. That is what Stacy and Tracy are doing here today. Then they come back, and this is what I was saying about, we want to think about what happens next. Remember the two criteria? It follows logically. And what I mean is, we're not going to do a unity ritual before they do their vows. That just wouldn't really make sense. And I have seen this in some scripts with coaching clients, people who, wham bam, they need help instantly. I have a package for that. And I look, and the vows come before the intent of marriage, which that, logically, this is where we need to think of this as officiants. It's kind of an unfolding story, the ceremony is. You're not going to have them say their vows and then ask them if they intend to promise their lives to each other when they literally just did that, right? So that seems basic, but I do see it. And so the same way with wedding rituals, wait until they've said their vows, then say this ritual. I typically don't use that word. I say they will now do this thing, which is a symbol, a concrete physical symbol in this world of what they've done. And then they do it. And then I like when they just are able to come right back in front of me for the rings. My reason for that is I do like them being right there when I move into the pronouncement. That way it can all happen pretty quick. That's where, of course, you say, by the power given me by the state of Nebraska, I pronounce you married, or husband and husband, whatever it is, you may kiss, or you may kiss the bride. It's really nice coming out of the rings. They're already standing in front of you. They're already holding hands. There doesn't need to be a lot of weird getting back into place. So back to the tree. What if the tree planting was that kind of chaotic, go over there, grab a shovel, dig a little bit, what if it took a little bit longer? That to me would resemble a lot what the signing looks like in Canada, where some officiants, we sign the license right in the ceremony in Canada. John, Australia as well? I think this wasn't as weird for Australians. I mean, a lot of Americans say like, whoa, what is this? Signing papers in the ceremony? We always do the signing in Canada. And I'm trying to export that to the US. I know loads of Unboring Wedding Academy members took me up on it, took me at my word that, hey, this sounds kind of like it could be fun. And it is, because this is what I mean by the chaos, where it's a little bit of movement. You walk over to the table, the witnesses come to it. So 5 of us are there, but I always tell the couple, play some fun music, because you've kissed, everybody's cheered. I have a whole video on this, why I prefer kiss then sign rather than sign then kiss. Some Canadian officiants, or traditionally, I think, do the signing before that. And so it's kind of like, again, it's that tense, awkward, you can hear the pen scratching. It's so quiet. And I would just say, no, like, have them kiss, have everybody cheer, and then say, we're going to go sign some papers. So that was a bit of a tangent, but this is where I would say, if it's something that's a little bit more informal and fun and would take a bit more time, that's a good place to put it, whether or not you have a signing. So let's say you don't do a signing. After they kiss and cheer, you might want to say, well, having done all that and pronounce them, now they would love to plant a tree right here on the property that will grow, explain it. And then again, they move over and start doing that a bit. And you can even have a song ready for if it takes a little bit longer. But after the kiss and the cheer, the ceremony instantly gets more casual. Everyone's like kind of in party mode, and that's a great time to do something a little bit more informal. I will say again, that's where I add toasts. Sometimes a couple wants me to toast them right before I present them. So that's the very last thing, as we come back after whatever ritual the signing, say, or that chaotic tree signing. They come back, they're facing the guests. I give some quick closing remarks. And that's where often, sometimes it's just the couple who are taking a drink. A lot of time, if it's a venue, champagne flutes will be distributed during the signing, and then everybody has one, and it's up to me to give them a little toast at the end. So having done all that, raise your glasses. I'd like to toast the bride and groom, happiness, love, and happiness ever after. Cheers. Everybody drinks. That's cool. This is also where I would put shot skis. So we can talk about shots a little bit. Shots, if it's very like blending or pouring, and as a symbol of the tequila ceremony that a lot of people know about. You can Google it, the tequila unity ritual in a ceremony. I just had one last week. And again, I put it between the vows and the rings. They said their vows, then they moved over to that table. And I said a little thing about how tequila is like marriage. I got a chuckle. It was fun. Again, it's not, you don't need to worry if the test is not whether this is a fun thing or a serious thing. The test is whether or not it's as simple as the couple going over, doing a little thing while you talk, completing that thing, and coming back. Anything like that, I would put between the vows and the rings. But a shot ski or a toast, those are a little bit more chaotic. And shot ski, usually literally it's a ski with 2 holes in it and 2 shot glasses. I don't know if you've seen this. And they hold it to their mouths and take it together, and the bottom usually says something. It's a really fun ritual. And because everybody cheers and sees the ski and whatever it says at the bottom, Mr. and Mrs. or something like that, I love doing that kind of thing, the toast, right before I present them, like the second last thing before the ceremony. I give quick closing remarks. Somebody hands them the ski, and I say, and now to usher in their marriage officially, right before I present them, they're going to take a shot. So we sometimes count them down, 3, 2, 1, happily ever after. Everybody cheers. They take the shot, and then down they go. That would be a time to do a chaotic tree planting, I would argue, as well. That's why when Dustin asked me, where do I put a tree planting? I would say, if it's a lot of movement, it's similar to the signing, which best goes after the kiss and after the pronouncement. That way you can have a fun song play. They're over there digging. The guests are chit-chatting. They come back to center. They're facing the aisle. And then you move into closing remarks and the presentation. Okay, so again, to wrap up, I want to read your comments. And if you have any questions, please hit me with that. I do like to try to keep these to half an hour so that they're watchable again. But please ask me some questions, clarifying questions, give me your opinions. To sum up again, the criteria that I use are, does the ritual follow the logic of the ceremony? That's the first really important thing. And so obviously, after vows, when you're symbolizing the vows, makes the most sense. And a lot of time putting them immediately after the vows before the rings makes sense. And so that second criterion, of course, is where you think about what is happening next. You got to think, can they come back? What's the vibe? What's the feeling? I've seen some broom jumpings that are like the couple jumps over the broom and then like nobody knows what to do with themselves. You've got to be ready. I would love to put, for example, a broom jumping right before I pronounce them, because it's kind of like, it's kind of silly. I've even seen it demonstrated where people jump over the broom and then everyone's kind of like, whereas I would jump over the broom, friends and family, stay with us now, I present to you. Like, see the difference where you want to keep the energy moving forward. That's also where I do breaking of the glass. I shout, everybody shouts Mazel Tov, and then I get everybody on their feet and present them for the very first time. So always think about, is this ritual going to what's going to happen after? And does it flow well? Can I keep the energy going? And it's not always kinetic energy. Sometimes it just means they come back and now we can get into the rings. But coming out of the rings, they're standing there and you can pronounce them married very smoothly and clearly. Okay. So I know Jane's got some comments and she is like a super pro. So I'm excited to read that. Sherry's here. Hey, Sherry, good to see you. So John is saying, so it's agreeing with me about kind of the Australia, Canada tradition. After the ritual, I close with a short blessing, Jane says, or reading related to the ritual. That's perfect. Pronouncement, play elevator. No, John, do not play elevator music. Play great music that people can kind of chair dance to. I love that. Legal requirement to sign after the vows. Interesting. I know Australia, you have to say, I don't know if that's changing. You have to say certain paragraphs. And it's kind of like, okay, we got to do this part. So it's legal. Jane says sometimes with a tree planting, we tell the guests that the tree will be at the reception and guests can hang heart-shaped notes. That's so cool. So that would mean it's in a pot and it moves over to the reception. Again, I haven't done many of these. I've done a couple, but that's a pretty neat idea too. Dustin, you're here. I was wondering if it was okay to kind of out you, but here you are. So this was a very long. Okay, let's start over for Dustin. So hopefully that was helpful and clear. We are getting to the bottom of the hour. Like I say, I want this to be watchable in the replay. I'm happy to answer any questions here. But I guess my answer to the question, where does a tree planting or other Unity ritual go? I'm going to bring that to a close. I'm happy to hang out with you more for a few minutes. But if you were hanging on here and hoping I got it all in, there you go. You won't miss anything from here on out. That's my criteria. Again, does it follow in the logic? And Jane talked about, where to situate things so that makes sense. And then what happens afterwards? We don't want hands tied up when it's time for rings, or we don't want some kind of awkward stutter step, which is why I talk about closing with the grand finale. I'm always thinking, grand finale, I should finish that word. I'm always thinking about what's the forward momentum here? What's coming next? How do we keep moving? And, awkward moments in a ceremony are not the end of the world. People kind of giggle and everybody's over it. They get on. But the better we can structure it, the better the feeling coming out of it. And, the better people are going to respond to us as wedding officiants in general. Okay, Bonnie, you got to tap out. Nice to see you. Thank you. Chad says, I got asked to do my third wedding by my cousin. They're flying me back out to Long Beach in November. All the other weddings that I've done, I've always got from your channel. Okay, well, nice. Good to see you, Chad. I'm glad you're here. You seems to be rolling. Third wedding. Man, good for you. Diana says, if they want to get married on water in Nevada, they have to say I do on land, or it's not legal. Man, I love little legal minutia like that. That's very interesting. Also, is there water in Nevada? just the lake, right? Just the lake with the dam on it. Maybe on a raft. Cool. John says you have to include certain words. Yeah, Australia I know is very, very strict. Good, Matthew. I'm glad this was helpful. Gave you lots of new ideas. I know it seemed like maybe a lot of like blank splat on the screen. Hopefully it was helpful for you as you consider adding rituals and where they belong. And again, don't overthink the transitions. Just explain. That's a couple of weeks ago. I think the last live we did. Explain what's happening next and then just do the thing. Love the idea of adding guest wedding wishes to the tree. I know, Sherry, I love that. Again, sometimes as officiants, we're not planners. But it's always good to have things like that to recommend if a couple says, we want a tree planting. And then you could say in the wedding planning session, a month to a month and a half before, hey, have you thought about putting that tree in the reception area? I heard that somewhere. You don't need to say YouTube. Good. Paul, hey, Paul, you made it too. Good. No offense. We're just wrapping up, but good to see you. Man, I love seeing so many members of Unboring Wedding Academy here. You guys just can't get enough. You're just always learning. I love that because we do have members only lives on the last Tuesday of every month. So Suzanne, another familiar face, I was going to say, name, awesome. Okay, I did get that right, Diana. Hardly any water in Vegas, right? When I go to Vegas for Wedding MBA, my wife and I are always trying to kind of get far flung out and see some things. And it's pretty much like, yeah, go to the lake or whitewater rafting somewhere, I guess. Do you ever leave a gift to cover your meal cost? Paul, excellent question. I never do because I never eat the meal. So that's an easy one. Just as a wedding vendor, the couple often graciously say, Mark, can we feed you? And I always say, no, thank you. I'm not one of the vendors you need to feed. You need to feed your DJ. You need to feed your photographer. You need to feed your MC if you've hired them privately. But I do not need to be there. Most wedding officiants, I'd say well over 90%, typically boom, sign. I find them when they're, getting their pictures taken, give them hugs, say goodbye, tell them I'm going to follow up in an email. And I do follow up and ask for a review, tell them I mailed in the paperwork. So that's the thing I tell them when I go see them. It's usually in like I say, the photo chaos, but I just can I say goodbye? This is not our last time, but that's goodbye for today. Thanks so much. Love you. Loved working with you. Hugs. And you'll hear from me soon. And then, of course, I follow up with, I mailed your stuff in. Can you leave me a review? That's a very long answer to saying, I don't, wedding crash their reception. Cool if you do. And if you did, I mean, you never owe the couple a gift. One thing I think that's really nice is a lot of officiants do sign a card for the couple and find the card box and put it in. Best wishes from your officiant. That's really sweet. And so that's something you might consider. Jane, awesome to have you as usual. You're a ninja of wedding officiating, and it was great to see you. Third wedding tomorrow, Paul. That is awesome. Cheers from Franklin's here from Aruba. Great stuff. A lot of. I don't know if you guys have been watching or just joining late or just commenting late, but it's great to see you. Last chance, 1 minute warning. If you got any questions, even unrelated to Unity rituals, I would love to hear them. I can stay for another couple minutes. But barring that, this has been great seeing so many of you here. Again, I really enjoy these Friday Lives, and I am planning on being here next Friday. I'm thinking, when am I traveling? I have a wedding rehearsal? But I am planning on being here next Friday. I attach a note to a bottle of champagne. That is classy. That's really, really nice, Cindy. That's a great idea as well. The ideas are so good. We're better together all the time. Back to bed, John. I can't believe you're awake. It's like what, 2 a.m. there or something. Yeah, you need to. Thanks for getting up just for us, John. Set his alarm, I'm sure. Had a nightcap. Back to bed. Love that you're along for the ride, John. Great being a colleague in weddings with you. All right, friends, that is it. It's a scorcher of a weekend. I have an outdoor wedding tomorrow. I'm going to soak through another suit, but it's going to be a really fun, unboring wedding where I tell their love story and all that good stuff. If you want to check out the course, look in the description of the YouTube video here. Get your invite to Unboring Wedding Academy at unboringweddingacademy.com. If you're joining this and you're pressed for time and you'd like to work together, I have a quick help package fully revamped with only what you will need in the next 3 days to get that ceremony done. You can check that out. The link is there as well, unboringweddingacademy.com/coaching. And if you're a pro and you are wondering, how do I find clients? How do I keep clients? How do I interact with clients? unboringweddingacademy.com/pro is my pro course that teaches you all the business side. Again, many of the people here in the chat have taken that. And when you complete both courses, you're eligible to be certified on unboringwedding.com. You can just Google that, Unboring Wedding Certified Officiants. That page will come up and you'll see all those amazing people there who have taken both courses, adhere to the standard of conduct, have a website, have reviews. They're super amazing. And I just love that crew. Okay. So thanks so much. Yeah, Franklin, make it an unboring weekend all over the world. We are unboringifying weddings all over the world. Weddings can be absolutely awesome. They are awesome. And we can make them even better by making it all about the couple and working on the flow and thinking about not just our couple, but the guests as well, how they're feeling, how they're engaging. We love what we do. It's an awesome profession. Have a great weekend, everybody. Again, thanks for joining live. I really appreciate it. It makes my day. Have a good one.